Hi, everybody. Really happy to have Dr. Stacie Johns on the podcast this week. She is a black belt. She is the mother of a black belt. She's also a medical professional and medical coach at Ripple Effect Martial Arts. And we're going to let her talk about a little bit about what that means and what her role is and how karate has been meaningful for her. So welcome, Dr. Johns. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what you do as a medical professional. What are your qualifications and background?
Absolutely. So I'm a family physician and have been for almost 20 years now. I did all my training at Chapel Hill in North Carolina, and then came out here to the wonderful state of Colorado and have been practicing medicine out here since 2007. I'm a very full spectrum family physician, which means I do a little bit of everything. So I used to do inpatient medicine as well as obstetrics, delivering babies and pediatrics. I've had extensive training in sports medicine as well as other specialty fields. I kind of got into martial arts a little bit because I did some athletic training in the past and really got interested in helping a little bit along the way with my son.
When it comes to martial arts and medicine, how does that approach? Is a little bit of a dichotomy, I think, for some people, some parents especially. They're going, wait, I'm going to put my kid in a sport where the idea is to damage another person or something, to kick and punch, to get kicked and punched. Did you have any perspective on that before you started martial arts?
Yeah, so I've always thought of martial arts as not really the goal being to harm the other person, but to protect yourself. And so I've always thought that what you learned is how to be able to control your body and to be able to protect your body and to be able to protect yourself from any sort of threat that comes towards you. Yes, in sparring, you are attacking towards others, but your goal isn't necessarily to harm or cause harm or break the other person. One of the things I love about Ripple Effect is they teach you to, really get out of the difficult situation you're in and then get away, because that is what self-preservation is about. My children are both very small, like 7th percentile. And so I initially was like, gosh, this could be really beneficial to them because kids are mean in school and they pick on each other. And I would love for him to be able to know how to protect himself from others and be able to defend himself if needed. And that's I think generally in life, a good skill to have. And as I became a black belt myself and then a second degree black belt, one of the things that I've learned has been probably the most important thing of all is the skill of control. Because as you learn more and more how to do harm to others with martial arts, what comes with that is having to have great control.
I don't know anything about medicine. I haven't had any training, but I've heard the Hippocratic Oath, right? Do no harm. And It seems like that is, I never thought about it before, but that is a principle of karate, is to build yourself up and don't do harm. When it comes to general fitness and health, is that, I suppose people could do harm to themselves by doing too many push-ups or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your perspective on that in terms of, I guess, the martial arts approach to building strength or flexibility? Has it helped or does it have the potential to help?
Yeah, I think from that regards, I think diversity is hugely important. I think you can definitely do harm by overdoing something. So if you just whip out 200 push-ups and you're not used to doing that, you're absolutely going to harm yourself. Overuse injuries is a huge aspect of sports that we see in young athletes that train really hard in one sport. Cross training and doing different things to train and develop different muscles is hugely important, especially one of the things in martial arts that's great is we do so many different things with our bodies and our muscles that we really have the benefit of being flexible in what we can do. So we don't have to just do push-ups. We don't have to just do sit-ups or crunches to work those parts of our bodies. We can do, we can work on our stances. We can work on our forms, and through those activities also improve our abs or improve our legs and do different things. So we have huge flexibility in the way we can work our muscles, and by doing that, not have the huge amount of overuse injuries and repetitive sort of injuries that you can see by just doing 100 push-ups. Does that mean you shouldn't do 10 push-ups one day and work towards being able to do 100? No, it's a great goal to have, but it's super important that you watch your body and listen to your body and know that if that is becoming an issue, you can diverse and find more flexibility and diversity in how you train. And I think martial arts is a really great way to offer that, because there's so many different ways you can perform martial arts and so many different styles of martial arts. And being an older person myself in my mid to late 40s with not great knees, I had to modify a lot of what I did so that I could continue doing what I do. And having injuries here or there, there's flexibility. I could always keep doing it because I could modify and change what I was doing.
That's a really good point. Speaking from someone in their mid to late 40s also, the flexibility aspect has been really crucial for me. And can you speak to that for a moment, just from the perspective of children who seem bendable in, to no limited.
Right.
And then for adults who feel like I'm stiff as a board, how could I possibly do this? What is going on with the physiognomy of flexibility in the body, and how does martial arts help in your perspective?
Yeah. So when we're really young, we're really bendable. If you ever look at a baby, they can bend their feet up and, they chew on their feet, right? And they're super bendable, right? And as we age, we lose that flexibility, and it really starts at puberty to really go downhill, where we lose a lot of that flexibility. Thank you, hormones, right? And as
that
we
early,
age,
really.
Yeah. That's usually about the time when you start to lose it. So if you look at the teenagers, they'll be really, really flexible up until that teenage transition. And then they'll really start to lose a lot of that flexibility if they don't work to maintain it. And so as we age, if we haven't done a lot to maintain that flexibility into our adulthood, we will be really stiff when we start. And that's when it's really important to listen to your body and not overdo it. And when you're starting, I do think, however, from beginning to, in the black belt journey, you gain so much flexibility in the process. I mean, when I started, I couldn't kick to a head when I started, but when I got my second degree, I was, nailing round kicks to, my partner's head with no problem. Could I do that without stretching a little bit and warming up? Absolutely not. But you gain the flexibility by using the muscles and keeping them going and stretching a little bit at a time every day and continually working on that. And that makes a huge difference in your body as you age. And it's really important for pain as well. I think a lot of people, especially through this past pandemic, have really stopped moving. And it's a source of a lot of our pain, our muscles and our rigidity in our spine and our bodies. And getting out there on the mat and moving and regaining a lot of that flexibility really eliminates a lot of our pain and helps with it a lot.
The elimination of pain is a really interesting, also a dichotomous kind of idea of martial arts, but peace, serenity, health of the body is really the goal. And as a mother, how have you seen improvement in confidence and feeling good?
Yeah. 1,000-fold. Watching Matthew. I mean, Matthew started very young, but he's my son that I do it with. And watching him grow in confidence is just fantastic. And watching him year after year after year. And, now as a second degree, when he'll go out and teach a class and he's 11. And I don't know many 11-year-olds that can go onto a mat and control a group of 15, 20 people, help each other learn. And all of that he's just taken to heart. And it's just such a part of the community of martial arts at Ripple Effect. And that's one of the things I love and watching him grow. And it spills over into all aspects of his life. So now he's doing football. And on top of it, and the other day after practice, he said to me, I got to be team captain today and I got to lead all the exercises. And the coach afterwards said, you did that as if you've done it your whole life and like you have been doing this for forever. He's like, have you played tackle and all this? And have you been doing it for 10 years? And he's like, no, I played one season. And Matt was like, why am I so good at it? And I looked at him and I was like, because you did 8 years of martial arts. Like, you're used to going up in front of people and leading and taking charge and having that confidence to lead a group and to be a part of something. And I think to instill that, to be a leader in a child from an early age, is such a skill that we need to instill in our children. And it's such a gift.
That's awesome. I haven't seen him on the football field. That's so cool. But I remember his white hot knuckles on his fist. No kidding. I mean, just.
He's a really good football player, and it makes me just shake my head because I do not want him to do tackle. I want, at least in sparring, he has a big, helmet on, and we do it controlled. And I feel like there are not a lot of concussions. I feel like people actually stay really pretty safe in the martial arts world. I feel like there are very limited amount of injuries when we spar because we do keep it in a very controlled environment. I do not feel it is quite the same on the football field. It makes me much more nervous as a mom.
Well, at least there are no clotheslines allowed.
Right. Yeah, true that.
Speaking of parents who are nervous, we have a black belt test coming up, and you have always manned the table with all of your implements of medicine. And there are certain potential injuries that could come about. So talk a little bit about that. What's potential, or what should parents be concerned about if they're bringing their kids into, a scenario like the black belt test?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, I don't think they should have fear or concern, because I think first and foremost, what they need to know is that every single instructor there and every single leader there always has their child's best interest at heart. And I have never once, having been through that test, how many times have I gone through it? Right. 6 times or more, maybe. I can't remember how many I've done now. I have never once felt that anyone has not had the, health and safety of the children's best interest at heart. I've never felt concerned about that. But it's a long weekend, and it's a lot of, I don't want to say stress on the body, but it's a lot of endurance, I think is a good word to use. The injuries I see are usually very mild. They're blisters, depending if we're on carpet or floor. Feet can only handle so much floor, right? I tape up a lot of toes. I see people, if they don't trim their toenails, I see that a lot of toenails being damaged because the notoriously will stub it on a chair or on the floor. So I do a lot of toenail trimming. That sounds really silly, but ripping off a toenail really hurts. So a lot of silly things like that. I do see some overuse injuries where people have trained really hard leading up to that and then end up pushing themselves really hard to get through the weekend. And they're like, my knee just hurts a little more than I'm used to. And, so I'll tape and give them some support for that, or, help them out through that. And the other thing I watch for is if it is too much, if they have fallen and sprained their ankle, or if there's something where I am concerned about their safety. And I find that we always can find a way to modify to keep the children safe, which is really super helpful. The other thing is dehydration. Kids just don't like to drink, and because they're afraid to run off and go to the bathroom. So I always try to stress to people, drink, and it's okay to have to go pee. And I know that sounds silly, but there's kind of the hierarchical, you don't want to have to ask, you do what you're told, and that's great. But if you're not taking care of your body, then you can't perform well. I do encourage people to drink, and that's a big one. And then just keeping up with what you burn. You burn a ton of calories. So having a lot of snacks, people get a little wobbly by the end of Saturday night. So I do a lot of sit down and eat a snack. And 5 minutes later, they're better enough back on the floor. And then there are silly injuries, like I've injured myself, when I was a brown belt and you slip on the floor and you hurt yourself because you didn't mean to have that happen, and you're a silly adult. Usually it's more the adults than the kids. Because,
right. Those are
our bodies are not as limber and flexible, and they're not as forgiving. So we have to be gentle with ourselves, and we tend to push ourselves harder than we should often. And we often don't listen to our bodies as well as adults, and our bodies don't forgive as the way they should sometimes. Whereas the kids are usually, they rock it and do fantastic.
Is it interesting to you that most of the instructors are a lot younger than the adults?
Mm-hmm.
And I've felt that they're aware of not limitations, but just what you're talking about. There's almost a kind of wisdom built into the younger instructors that goes, okay, you've accomplished what I need you to accomplish.
Exactly. Yeah.
Feel like that?
Yeah, I do. And I feel like they recognize that the adults are trying to do everything they can, and they're often working to the top that their body can. And I think with the kids too, I mean, they recognize that, not everyone is going to be, a Power Ranger. Not everyone is going to be, an Olympic athlete. And that the goal is not to have everyone be the most elite athlete. The goal is to have everyone do the best that they can do for their body. And that ultimately is what's the most important, is to just do your best, and everyone's personal best is what's best. Right. And that's your own personal level. And that's different for everyone.
Well, I really appreciate you personally, because you have absolutely hands-on in very real and tangible ways helped me with my health. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. I hope everybody else does too. Doctor's a little busy these days, if you haven't noticed. So
A little bit.
thank you so much, Dr. Johns, and keep on doing what you're doing. And if you didn't notice, everybody before the black belt test, get a pedicure. Okay.
just trim your nails so they're not super long.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Johns. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.